10:01. We do have a bunch of people jumping on right away, but we'll start with a little bit of housekeeping. So I think I will get rolling on time. We've got a fair bit of stuff to cover in a relatively short period of time. So let's just jump right in as some more people join us. So first off, the journey of search engine optimization. Don't know exactly how or why I came up with this one, but I know why it's appropriate. And basically, the journey is a little challenging. As I mentioned here, it can be done. And the big thing is like a hike across the desert, you want to commit to finish. And that's really something about search engine optimization, is that if you're not on the first, if you don't make it to the first page of Google, all your efforts are more or less wasted. So you really want to, again, this is not a quick hike down to the beach that we can do in our sandals and t-shirt. You really need to think about all the elements that are going into it, do some planning around it, think about what it's going to take, and again, really decide upfront if you want to commit to the journey. Again, because otherwise it's just, there's really no point if you don't make that commitment. On the positive side, there is an absolute ton of transparency in search engine optimization. So you can see exactly what your competition is doing, and you can decide if it's worth it or not. So that's good. We've got a bunch more people joining right now. We'll just keep going through some of the basic housekeeping as more people join, and then we'll pick up the pace. So this session, basically the goals are to learn a little bit about ongoing SEO strategy. We're going to look at some practical tips and methods and show some of the tools we use. But like most anything with web marketing, really it's the most important thing is to understand a bit of a strategy behind it. I know early in my career, I was quite worried about understanding sort of the how to do every single little thing. Like, oh my gosh, how do I do that kind of targeting in Facebook? Or how do I do that exact technical thing for setting up an email that will track in a certain way? And to be honest, I've personally just basically given up on knowing how to do everything, because it's actually way more important to know why to do it. Because there's literally an infinite amount of things that you could do for your website and your web marketing efforts. But so you can't possibly learn them all. And quite frankly, if you're working inside a company and managing, say, a single Google Ads account or Facebook Ads account, or doing SEO but by the time you go to do something again, it'll have changed. So again, really, I would really encourage people not to get too hung up on the technology, but really focus on learning what it is you need to do rather than how. And then Google's our friend, can always go and it takes moments to find out sort of what the latest changes are to whatever it is you're looking at. Kind of funny, I was having a discussion with another team member, Carmen, yesterday, and she and I were discussing negative keywords, and couldn't remember exactly how that worked. So within literally 15 seconds, it's up on the screen, and you know exactly how it works, how it worked in this case in regards to more sophisticated match types. Anyhow, we'll get to keeping that. So today we're going to look at a bit of SEO background, then along the way we'll run through some slides and do some quick demos, and then we will have a pretty thorough Q&A at the end. We want to get through all the slides by 11, just out of respect for people's time, and if we have luck, maybe even a bit quicker. But we will stick around as long as there are questions. Happy to stick around and answer them. And yeah, and don't expect everybody to hang on, so certainly expect people to just drop off as they're down there. So back to, and it's funny because I started doing presentations out at the Vancouver Island Tech Park, presentations like these in person back then, but back in 2008. And I had this almost identical slide at that time. And I haven't actually used it for quite a while, but in thinking about how best to explain things, I thought, hey, I'll dig up my three-legged stool analogy. And basically there are three parts to a successful search engine optimization effort. The first is the technical setup and structure. And it really is the first, because if your site doesn't have the proper sort of technical setup in place, it might actually be blocking Google from even seeing you. So that's really the first sort of place to look, is at your technical setup and structure. The second is about the content you have on your website, because of course, search engine optimization and what people are looking for on the web, more importantly, is all about content. And then the third is linking to your site and content and engagement, basically the signals to Google that you have good quality stuff on your site, that people that Google wants to show to people and that people want to see. So, and again, the obvious part of the analogy is if you remove one of those three legs, you're sort of toast. You're lying on the floor. So, and just quickly, I shared this in a different recent webinar, but I wanted to just touch on it now. And the reason it's important to touch on it is just, as I mentioned, search engine optimization is very competitive. And essentially, you have to be competitive at any of these levels before you can move up to the next one. And so first off is just your brand and company search engine optimization. And by that, I just mean that if someone is searching for your company by name, that you show up properly and prominently in Google, and mostly that's around things like that basic technical stuff, having your site properly set up with your name and information, and probably the most important one on that is being registered for all the main business directories and services like Google My Business, Yellow Pages, if you have a Facebook page, all those things basically that your business is represented consistently across all of those basic platforms. And then Google will understand who you are, what your business is, and you'll show up well for that. The next one is sort of local SEO. And by that means that you can compete in your local market on keywords that are relevant to your business. And most businesses have at least some local component. As we'll discuss in a moment, there are other businesses like, for instance, software companies. If you're making photo software and someone's searching for photo software, Google understands that you don't really care where that software is built. So that's the other end of the scale, is the global software. But so really the first thing is on local search engine optimization is having the content and services on your site set up so that you're well represented and Google can figure out that you're a local business that does these things. Sort of a next step up is if you happen to have, like many of our clients, if you happen to have multiple locations, there's some specific strategies that relate to showing up not just in one location, but in multiple distinct locations. Big things around that are Google My Business, having that set up properly with one account for all your businesses, using the same name and letting Google determine the location based on your map location, as well as having separate location pages. That's sort of the layer on there. To then take the next step and get into sort of a national level search engine optimization situation, you really need to be looking hard at competitive SEO and making sure not just that your site is done properly, but that's where you really do need to be focusing on those external links and signals to Google that you are a prominent company in that area. And for some companies, there's not really much difference between national and global, but where that does come into place is, for instance, for e-commerce companies. Google knows that, for instance, that people prefer to shop in their own, from vendors in their own country. So there are some distinctions nationally. And so, for instance, if I was selling running shoes out of Edmonton, for instance, Google would favor me over somebody doing that from down in North Dakota, sort of thing. And so there's some interesting things there. And then, of course, like I said, global search engine optimization is just basically beating everybody else on the planet at what you want to rank for. And in truth, most companies, once they get seriously into SEO, have a little bit of a mix of all of these things. For instance, niche topics. You're not going to compete globally for a competitive topic if you're a smaller company, but if you have a specific niche that you write about, maybe you'll show up on that. In any case, we've read along here. In terms of those foundational priorities that we were discussing, that technical setup, there's a couple in the content, there's a couple things that might help. One is we did a DIY SEO audit webinar, and you can actually see the recording of that if you'd like to at the URL for technical setup. As well, on the content side, we did a keyword strategy webinar, and there's another recording for that you can access. I should mention too that we will both distribute these slides afterwards, as well as share the video recording link. So don't worry about trying to scratch down those URLs if you want to check them out. And then the third priority is really those offsite basics that I referred to, the name, address, and phone number, making sure that those are properly listed on any and all business sites and business directories that you can access. And that's pretty important. So in terms of the ongoing priorities, getting into the meat of what we're talking about today, there's really three main areas as we define it. There's the content and copy. And a lot of people use the term synonymously, and in some ways it is, but typically copy refers to basically content, basically something, writing or content that has a business purpose. So for instance, your product page or your services page, your home page, that's going to be copy. So, and conversely, content is typically considered to be information or education. So it's not it's not written with a product or service focus. The second area is engagement and promotion, and essentially you can have great content and copy, but if nobody's seeing it, it doesn't matter. And if you're not promoting it and people aren't seeing it, Google's not going to find it either. I mean, they'll find it, they will index it, but you won't get any love and you won't get any search results if you're not doing that. And then lastly, links. We're going to talk a bit more about links, and I just want to make it clear that by links, we don't mean a sheer number of places linking to your website, but rather high quality, relevant websites and properties that are linking to you for legitimate reasons. And there used to be some really shady stuff that went on around buying links and that sort of thing. And quite frankly, there still are, but the thing is that now they don't work anymore, and in fact can dramatically harm you. Actually, so we have a example I'll show you later. And so really there's a million ways to approach these priorities, but we'll have a look at this through the lens of my own practical example. And just in terms of myself, I mean, I've been doing web marketing for 20 years now. So that of course makes me old, but it also makes me a bit of an industry veteran and has certainly seen it all. And I launched this company in 2007 and sort of morphed into the agency over the first couple of years. And looking back in terms of search engine optimization, around 2012, life was good. We hadn't really done anything overly proactive except followed some best practices. And actually am a bit of a writer myself. So we had a really nicely fleshed out website with a lot of content and copy on it. I was blogging at that time. And we were at that point, at least in our local market, we were showing up first for most every web marketing type term. So if you Googled online marketing in Victoria, we showed up. If you Googled web marketing, we showed up. If you Googled email marketing, we showed up. If you Googled search engine optimization Victoria, we showed up. Essentially, if not in the first place, at least in the top 3 for literally everything. So fast forward to 2020, and well, quite frankly, life is still good. I mean, the business is doing better than ever, and we're been really relying these last years on just an absolute ton of sort of client referrals and recommendations and that sort of thing. So business is good, but in terms of search engine optimization, we've reached this point where we're basically on life support. And it's funny, even a couple things have sort of crumbled, if you will, in the last month or two even, and I'm being fairly open about this, but there's really just no other way to put it. So we're in the midst of a mission, and actually Yuri, who's on the call with us, is leading the effort on our behalf, sort of coordinating it with the different team members, but we're actually just embarking on a mission to get back to where we were before. And just out of business reasons as well as sheer pride, it's going to be a priority for the next few months. So, and so the question comes up of, well, why did this happen? Why did you go from being sort of the top ranking company in your market to having this more or less disaster? And a few things. The first big one is really a lack of attention. Back earlier in the company, I mean, we had sort of more time than money, so we spent a lot of time sort of investing in content and copy and writing and blogging and all that. So we dropped the ball on that for one thing. Most importantly, we weren't doing any regular work on it, so we just sort of let it sit. I've had some real technical issues pop up recently. For instance, for some reason, the Yoast plugin on our WordPress website has just in the past couple of weeks crashed and died, and I'm actually not sure why, and just noticed it in sort of final preparation for this webinar the other day. So that's something we've got to address. Interestingly, in looking at keywords, I've discovered that there's definitely some differences in search behavior and keywords than from originally, and quite frankly, consumers are smarter about web stuff than they used to be. So there has been quite a bit of change in the language that people are using around searching that hasn't been reflected on our website. And it's funny, in the back of my mind, I still think of our new website, because we went through a fair bit of effort to launch it when we launched it, and it seems like it was just a little while ago, but comes up in the audit, the fellow who was doing the audit of our website, which is basically a technical review, mentioned it was getting a bit stale, having been launched in 2014. So it's like, oh my gosh. So that's another factor there. And one of the big ones too is really that just the competitors are starting to work harder and work smarter. And some of the things that I noted in terms of looking through some of the competitive evaluation that was done, it's like, oh, our competitors actually, whereas once we had far and away sort of the best, most informative copy, we don't anymore. Simple fact. So our competitors have more copy. They also have better on-site linking strategies. So they have better linking on their pages from one section to another on the site, that sort of thing. That makes a big difference. They have sort of more proactive and strategic content strategies in some regards. And we certainly have continued, especially recently with content, but more just from the perspective of providing good, valuable information to people, rather than thinking strategically about how that works in terms of SEO. So we could definitely pull up our socks on that. And then also just better external linking strategies. And we'll have a look at how you uncover this, but I was really shocked to find out that there's a company that I consider ourselves to be way more advanced than, and they had a link to one of their blog posts from one of the biggest marketing sites on the planet. And it just happened that they had done a post that was very topical to what this was about. And it's kind of like, wow, where we haven't, and I know they will have been proactive in seeking that out. So it's kind of like, lesson learned. We got to get going on those linking strategies. So enough of ourselves. Let's have a look and sort of in terms of seeing where you rank. I mean, there's simple things. I'll just grab. Like if I type in web marketing Vancouver, it's funny. I was originally going to do it with real competitors locally, and it just got a bit too personal. In that I know everybody. So I'm just really not comfortable talking about the pros and cons of my local colleagues and associates. So, but anyhow, web marketing Vancouver, you can just Google and you see, oh, there's this ROI web marketing that comes up. Interesting name. It's the first one I've seen that's sort of that's similar to our name, VN Web Solutions. So you can get a sense of who's on there. As well, there's tools like Advanced Web Ranking is a tool that we used to use that allows you to track your monthly ranking, like what position you rank in Google for a variety of different keywords and compare yourselves to competitors. We don't use that tool so much anymore, just in that it Google changes slowly. So looking at those rankings every month is almost sort of demotivational, and there are some better things to look at that we'll talk to a little bit later. There's also something called Google Search Console, which is an absolutely fantastic tool where you can also get ranking information and kind of more meaningful ranking information in many ways. And we will come around to having a look at that as well. So getting started, basically, we talk a lot about competition and search engine optimization because essentially search engine optimization is all about competition. The reason for this is that to get on the first page of Google, which is critical, if you're not on the first page, you almost might as well not be there. But so to get on the first page, you actually have to beat somebody else that's on there right now. So this is where and it always blows my mind because I meet a lot of companies, a lot of people, a lot of companies where they're doing aggressive search engine optimization, putting a ton of work in it, but they've never fully assessed exactly where their competition's at. So they don't know if they have a little bit of site cleanup and 10 hours of work to do to get from that 12th position to beat whoever's in the 10th and get on the first page, or if they have a situation where they're actually never going to get onto the first page. And I've seen that before. I mean, we've been doing search engine optimization professionally for clients since about 2008, second year we're in business. And we've only had a couple of disappointments. And one of them was a large software company we were working for where we just never, we never sort of got to a point where we were applying enough resources to actually beat those other competitors. We did do some competitive evaluation up front, but not that surprisingly, in a competitive market, everybody else was working harder. So in hindsight, we just never really had a chance. And that's a situation where as the business owner of providing those services, at the end of the day, I wish that earlier in the engagement, I had either sort of told them that we needed sort of twice the budget to do enough work to make it happen, or that basically they shouldn't do it at all. Because again, that's anyhow, I'm sort of digressing and going off on a tangent, which I'm prone to, but nonetheless, competition is everything in search engine optimization, and you can get all the competitive information you could ever imagine. So definitely want to be thinking about that. So in terms of looking at the competition, there's different things you can do. I mean, obviously, you can look at their website and look at their blog, so you can assess their content and copy strategy. I'm kind of assuming that you've dealt with all the technical stuff up to this point, although there are some advanced technical things that you can do. Again, we'll leave that for folks that are curious. They go back to the Audit, DIY Audit webinar. Looking at someone's social presence, often a good place to uncover things that you might not have noticed on their website. If a competitor has a good content strategy, they will absolutely be posting their content through social media. And so you can go and have a look and see if it's actually working. Interestingly too, if they have a good social audience and they're posting content, you can get a sense, is anybody liking it? Is there any activity and is there any discussion? And if not, that's kind of a sign that maybe that's not the most popular type of content, and maybe to look in some other areas. Again, there's something called Moz Link Explorer, which we'll actually have a look at in a moment, but you can assess what's called domain authority through this Moz Link Explorer, and it's basically the absolute best indicator for your current potential in search engine optimization. This domain authority is a ranking between 1 and 100 that Moz has done based on what they know about the Google algorithm. So in short, if you have a higher domain authority than someone else, you should be able to beat them for a specific keyword if you do a better job of optimization on that keyword and content. There's also tools like SpyFu. There's SEMrush, Ahrefs, all sorts of different tools you can use to discover their keywords. All those are good, and some of them have their different uses. We right now rely mostly on Moz and SpyFu. So in this example, let's have a look at Moz Link Explorer. It's been around forever. It used to be called Open Site Explorer before it was bought by Moz. Gosh, probably 10 years or more ago, and then it's been renamed into sort of Link Explorer. And so if you go in, let's just go back to, oh, you know what, our Vancouver example. So if we, and as you can see, I've got PlusROI in there. It shows we have, a domain authority of 19, which is not great. Fortunately, very low spam score. It mentions our links. But I'll show you what, so let's put in a couple of Vancouver firms. And this would be one of your competitors if you want to see where they're at. In that example, we were 19, they're 31, so they're well ahead in some ways. So suppose you do want to compare a number of people. You can compare link profiles, and let's put in marketing.ca, also out of Vancouver. Add another. You can do compare up to 5 at a time. And also Moz, I think Moz has a short trial. You can also do a limited amount of these. I think it's like 10 of these comparisons per month for free. And as well, you know what, even you can pay month to month, and paying for a month when you need it and then going through and doing a whole bunch of research on your competitors, totally worthwhile. So in this case, we're looking in Moz, and it's like, okay, cucumber marketing compared to jelly marketing compared to Go Popcorn. Jelly has the highest domain authority with a 35. So that means that Google considers their site to be a little bit more authoritative than the other ones. So again, that doesn't mean that isn't specific to a certain keyword, but that just means as their overall website. So what that strongly suggests is if they were both competing on the same keyword, everything else being equal, jelly marketing would probably appear first. Interesting, there's a spam score. I think don't need to worry about that until it's about 15% or so. What that is if you have a whole bunch of links that are garbage to your site, they'll have high spam scores, and then you'll inherit their high spam scores. So that's a big reason that you don't want to get links from crappy sites. I'm going to guess that they're on some large association websites or something with 5 million links. That number is almost irrelevant. What we always go down to is external followed links. Wow, that's still 5 million. That's crazy. So what we really want to look at down here is followed linking domains. So what that is the followed linking domains is the number of separate websites, or the number of different domains, as it mentions, that have followed links. And you see these numbers are much more sort of normal, 214, 155, 104, those are much more practical. So and that, basically that means that there's, I hate to use the term in some ways, but that's 155 in this case, domains that are, air quote, basically voting that this is an authoritative thing. They have enough confidence that they're providing a link to this company. And the difference too between, you see this followed versus no followed. Essentially no followed links are the sort of links that occur if you sign up for, if you put a comment on a blog post, if you sign up for most anything public. In those sort of situations, websites and companies have started using this no follow standard, which basically is a signal to Google not to take that link into consideration. And the reason that websites do that is because in the past, link spammers would go out and just target any bulletin board, discussion group, comment area, any kind of website where there were no restrictions on putting a comment and a link, spammers would abuse that, and things got filled with junk. So the standard came out where you can tag links as no follows, and essentially Google ignores those links. So people have stopped, for the most part, trying to generate those kind of links for SEO reasons. And there still is some value in the no follow links, but that said, from an SEO perspective, at the level we're looking at right now, it's these followed linking domains that are absolutely the most important thing. And there's a lot you could learn in Moz.com and the Link Explorer. We'll have a little closer look in a bit. So moving on, SpyFu. SpyFu is a lot of fun. It's got a ton of tools, and we use it mostly to uncover organic and paid keywords to learn what keywords our competitors are using, or in our case, typically our client competitors. So let's just enter, what was that top tool, jelly.ca? I better have a look or I'll type it in wrong, jellymarketing.ca. So basically go to SpyFu. SpyFu does have limited research available for free. I think they do still have a trial. And again, much like Moz.com, if you don't want to pay for an ongoing subscription, you can do it for a month and do a ton of sort of research there. And sorry, I just got distracted by a note coming in. So if I look at Jelly Marketing CA, SpyFu tells me apparently they're not doing paid search at the moment because that's not showing up. But in organic search, they have 176 different organic keywords that are ranking. So we can click on that. Oh, and here's a late creativity consultant. I didn't really know there was such a thing, but hey, that is something that they are getting some traffic for. And the creativity consultant, SEO Vancouver, SEO DIY. Oh, that's an interesting one. Ahrefs versus SEMrush, retail digital marketing. So these are things, and again, we'll notice that most of these are blog posts that they're actually ranking for. That one is their retail marketing services, but the rest we consider blog posts. In any case, this is a great sort of brainstorming tool to use when we want to see what other people are ranking and getting traffic for in SEO and get some ideas for our own site. So having a look at those things, the question comes up, just doing a quick time check, and amazingly, we're pretty much right on time for where we should be. With having had a quick look at those things, and I should just stop, I think Yuri would have alerted me. Are there any questions or anything that's totally confusing up to this point?
Hey Rob, we have a question from Jennifer.
Yeah.
She was wondering what you think about using domain authority scores from SEMrush.
You know what? SEMrush is super highly respected. It's one of the only tools I haven't really used much. So I know there's a few professionals that I know and totally respect in the industry that do use it. So I'd say it's probably just fine. If you're not using one, I think the Link Explorer, dating back to the Open Site Explorer, it's been the one that we consider it the absolute most authoritative, but I have nothing to base that on other than its reputation and what we've seen in it. Because that's one thing that's kind of cool is I can say that in using it for over 10 years, we've always found its results to bear fruit. And this is stuff that doesn't always happen overnight, but in a case where if we have gotten a domain authority that's better than someone else, we have eventually been able to beat them for specific keywords. So we really rely on it. As Yuri knows, we've been doing a little bit of work in Ahrefs lately and playing around with that, which is a dramatically sort of different looking tool. And they have a domain ranking, which means the same thing as domain authority. For all I know, it could be as good or better than Open Site Explorer. What I would say is, I mean, it's fun to try a few of the tools. And of those three, SEMrush, Moz.com, and Ahrefs, whichever one has the feature set that most meets your needs. I think any of them would be good. So with that
So
said,
we have one more from Tim.
yeah, we're going to talk about
Should
links.
we
So I'm
circle
going to
back?
leave that
Okay,
one
cool.
right now. And
Sure.
yeah, I think we're going to actually very specifically answer that question.
Awesome.
So in terms of how to approach SEO, and I say this from the perspective of currently living in a bit of a disaster where we ignored it for a bit too long, is that big projects are okay. Like there's nothing wrong with deciding, much like we are right now, that okay, over this next quarter, we're going to overhaul the website, we're going to redo the website, we're going to redo all our keyword research, we're going to basically totally relaunch. That's great, but that pales in comparison to having an ongoing plan. I mean, some things, doing a whole bunch of work, building it, and then you can just leave it, and that's great. You're done. SEO is never done, and so essentially, if in looking at if you had 100 hours to devote to it, you would be much further ahead to spend 2 hours a week on it every week than to spend 100 hours over a month and then leave it. Like I just can't state that enough, just because there are all those things that change, all those opportunities that come up. So we definitely want to think in terms of small incremental efforts. In terms of annual tasks first, there's a couple of things that you want to do annually. One is to look at the overall SEO audit, to basically do a full check on your website and status, and then also to do sort of keyword strategy session and do some selection and review. And there's links again to the past webinars we've done on that. You want to do a complete competitive review kind of once a year, just to see who's who in the zoo and what's going on. And I've actually been thinking it would be fun to do a webinar on assessing your competition, and part of that being how to then sort of go forth with that, because there's just most people would be blown away to learn exactly how much somebody can learn about you and your business goals and your results if they really want to and know what they want to do. So definitely that's something we'll look at, and that's something you want to do once a year. And then again, there's that, and at least annually, you want to look at all your different business directory listings, your locations in Facebook, your Google My Business, Yellow Pages, whatever listings and directories you're on. Make sure you're looking consistent and accurate on all those, as well as look for some new directories and business listings. And again, just the legitimate ones. The garbage ones don't have any value. So then in terms of the monthly plan, and this is sort of on scales up or down according to the size of your company and how much time you have to spend. But again, once a month should do at least a quick health check, which might mean having a quick look at Google Search Console, having a quick look at and seeing what has happened on the website, if there's anything on the back end of your website, any warnings in your plugins in WordPress, for instance. If you have the time, I mean, some people's sites, once you've done an audit, once you've sort of tweaked it, isn't going to change that often. But a really great thing is if you can find at least one small site improvement to make every month. That could be tweaking your content, expanding your content a bit. It could be linking between different sections on your site in a logical manner. It could be, a big one is speed, especially with the propensity towards mobile these days. So looking at your website speed and doing something along those lines, whether there's technical things to address, or quite frankly, just about every website has some overly large images uploaded to it. So perhaps somebody didn't optimize a photo before they uploaded it. Perhaps somebody uploaded a photo as a PNG, which is an absolute no-no with a couple minor exceptions. And PNGs are often used for crisp graphics and logos, particularly if you want a transparent background. But they're just massive in file size compared to a JPEG for a photo or something like that. So those are just some ideas there. then essentially some sort, if you do really want to excel in SEO, whether you're at a local or national or whatever level, you got to have some sort of content strategy. So whether it doesn't have to be a blog, some people are uncomfortable, like the idea of a blog suggests you're going to be like sharing opinions. That's sort of how people perceive it, but at least having a news section, or the blog section, FAQs, whatever it is, or you can do like a resources section on your site where you add sort of helpful resources, ideally at least something once a month to show some signs of life. And then along with that, you need to promote the content. Again, as mentioned, content that nobody sees, like the idea of, and I've heard so many people say, oh yeah, no, my web designer told me I just have to add a blog post every month and Google will see all this fresh content, and that's that'll make my SEO happen. And no, it won't. I mean, having fresh content is better than not having fresh content, but having fresh content that you don't promote is near to useless. If nobody sees it and nobody ends up linking to it, you've mostly just wasted your time. It's not going to make a big difference. In fact, if Google sees that you have content that nobody's interested in, that could almost be a negative signal there. And then of course there's the topic of external links, of earning links from other sites. We're going to talk about that a little bit further in a minute. And then of course there's tracking and reporting. Should look in on some basis on a monthly level. And here's what the big thing that we do that we find the absolute most meaningful to gauge the health of your search engine optimization is looking at your organic search traffic on a month-by-month basis. And so I'll just jump over to, there's a Google sample account for analytics that you can get if you ever want to see something ever need to do examples that have data in it. So in this example, you'll open Google Analytics. Come on, Google Analytics. You come to the default dashboard page, which we actually never look at. Instead, go down to acquisition, go to all traffic. In this case, we'll click on channels. We'll usually click on channels or source and medium, but that's a topic for our advertising webinar. So in channels, in this example, okay, we'll set up for the month of June. So I'm selecting the July date range. If you're not familiar with analytics, it's free. If you're serious about web marketing, you must get using it, unless you happen to be one of the few people using an even more advanced tool. But again, it's free and it's overkill for most companies. So, so in this channels for the month of July, we can do organic search. There was 19,146 visits in this example. So from our perspective, the most meaningful thing you can do is look at, say, okay, well, how does July compare to June? So you'll compare the month that you're looking at, you'll compare it to the previous month. And then the other question is, some things are seasonal, like for instance, tourism and retail have dramatic fluctuations month to month. So the other thing you'll do is have a look at, well, how does July 2020 compared to July 2019? And that will give you a real good idea of whether your SEO efforts are paying off. If you're a little bit more sophisticated, this is something that Ryan on our team does for all our clients that I'm embarrassed to say I actually don't know how to do, although with the power of Google, I'm sure I could figure it out, is to filter. You can actually filter your results to just show non-brand traffic. And so in that example, if I'm talking about our own company, PlusROI Online Marketing, what it would do is create a filter. So you saw a filtered view where this number minus any search that included PlusROI would be shown. So let's say, oh, it's not 19,000, it's 11,000. And that's the most meaningful number. And the reason I say that is that brand search really relates to your offline efforts. If you're doing some print advertising, maybe you do a whole bunch of networking, maybe you're like me before COVID and present in person and do seminars, then people searching on the basis of your name is based on those efforts. It really has typically nothing to do with your search engine optimization. So isolating that and looking at just that non-brand organic search number, super meaningful. And it's what we do actually for all our clients that have any SEO sort of works with. Another thing is Google Search Console. And we'll have a quick look at Google Search Console too. Google Search Console, quite frankly, is minorly confusing to set up. Your web developer, if you're not a web developer, your web developer can do it, no problem. But you only have to set it up once, so it's not a big deal. So click over into that. So here's the Google Search Console for PlusROI for the past while. It shows the total impressions, the total clicks, and then it shows the different search terms that we've been showing up for. So it's like, oh, PlusROI, total visitors, Google Analytics, that's for a blog post. You can also click and see the pages that, well, in theory, I'm gonna have to refresh this. I think it did not like, so. Let me just try that again. For some reason, Firefox is not going to cooperate with me, but take my word that you can click on pages when Firefox is being agreeable, and it will actually show you the pages that got traffic. And then what I would say is almost most importantly, if you click on export, it will download those results. And in just one sec, I will show you. There's my. Now it shows the queries for the date range you have selected. It shows the number of clicks, the number of impressions, the click-through rate, and your position. So this is where it would be great in terms of if you have a set of keywords that you really want to track, you can actually gauge the average position that you've been showing up in for them right from the spreadsheet. It doesn't do it in Google Search Console itself, but it does do that in the spreadsheet. And fortunately, you can also, there's those pages I was telling you about. It exported all the different pages. So, oh, our Google Analytics for Beginners overview is absolutely our top page with 1,800 clicks during this time period. 5 stages of search engine optimization. That's in there too, so you can see which posts are successful. You can look countries, devices, appearance, all that stuff that we won't dive into right now. Oh, not bad for time. I do have to pick things up a little bit. So addressing thin copy, kind of ironic that we had somewhat bad SEO copy as it turned out for SEO services. When we did our audit recently, the fellow who did it internally told me, oh, our copy is really thin. And I'm like, what? I wrote that. Sadly, again, I wrote that like 6 years ago when there's some different guidelines around the amount of copy. So now to compete with the other companies doing it, we need to flesh out the content further, starting to revisit the keywords. I am going to just jump back over here. And so there's the Google Keyword Planner. Hopefully that'll come up. To use the Google Keyword Planner, you actually need to have a Google AdWords account, but you don't actually need to spend money in the account. This is most unusual. Again, apologies for that. As mentioned, 10 minutes before the webinar, my computer, there was a power surge and my computer stopped. So again, within Google AdWords, there's this Google keyword tool you can go in, and let's just see what SEO services, that might be one term. SEO, you can type in keywords to your heart's content. Often do this in conjunction with the competitive research of finding out what keywords your competitors are using. You can put in a whole bunch of different keywords on a topic, click get results. And the keyword tools tells us that, oh, there's SEO services in the US and Canada on the average month has 14,800 average queries, and SEO agency has 8,100. So that's a great resource for finding different keywords and keyword volumes. And then of course, there's the whole long list of suggestions of related keywords. And like we showed in that Search Console, you can also click and download all those keyword ideas, sort them, look through them, make notes on them. Pretty critical point of SEO to figure that out. So you can revisit your keywords. You can follow the 10 times rule, which is simply having a look at other people's web pages, find out who's ranking best for a certain page, and then setting a goal of doing 10 times better than them. If that's sort of unrealistic that it's going to be 10 times better, but if you do something dramatically better than someone else, great chance that you'll rank them. Off-site, you can add links. In our case, we didn't have any links going off-site from our pages, and that's something I noticed the competitors are doing. And so you could link to some SEO resources, and that basically shows Google that you are relevant to that topic. You can link to on-site relevant resources as well, which helps boost that. And you might have additional pages on specific parts of the search engine optimization. So in our example, I think we'll flesh out our search engine optimization services page along with sub-pages on the 3 pillars that we're talking about, as well as looking at other sections on the site that you can link in this example to our SEO section. Content and content strategy. So you've first got to decide what kind of content strategy you're going to use, and you might have one that's around your brand. Typically not a great idea to just talk about yourself and create content about yourself, but that can work if you're Apple and a select group of other companies. You can sort of entertain people, you can educate people, you can be a thought leader, and mostly you can do a combination of the above. The one point that I've discovered the hard way is that having the best educational content on the planet is of little use if nobody finds out about it, or if it's too boring for people to read. I've actually discovered that several times over in terms of SEO content. A couple times I've written posts that I thought, oh, this is the most important thing anybody could read about search engine optimization, and nobody reads it because it's boring. So you've got to liven it up a little bit. In terms of resources, I'm moving a bit quickly right now because we are running a little bit out of time, but definitely have all the time in the world for questions afterwards. In terms of a content section on your website, here's an example of the moz.com content section, resources section. If you create a resources section that provides helpful information that people using your services would appreciate, that's a great idea. And it can also attract people that are sort of higher in the funnel that maybe aren't quite ready to start shopping. And it's also fantastic for search engine optimization, which is really a big point in that anything you should do should sort of address all of those things. It should add value, help the relationship, and be great for SEO, not just be great for SEO. If you write just for SEO and write just for the search engines, probably not going to work. Everybody knows about blogs, so I'm not going to go too deep into that. The most critical thing that I would say folks, well, actually there's a couple things folks do. One is that people do posts and then don't promote them without promoting it. Again, near worthless. So need to invest a little bit on promoting it, either in time or money. You want things to contribute to your link strategy. So for example, the Google Analytics might, at the bottom of that post, we might link to sort of a strategic services area. Basically, each post should have a link to another relevant area on the website to help that area. And then lastly, what I don't mention here, but what a lot of people don't do is have a call to action on their blog post. So you can see our call to action is the newsletter sign up, and it says, get tips, free webinars, and post in your inbox. Get more posts like this in your inbox once a month, unsubscribe anytime with one click. And a lot of folks even will have sign up for our newsletter, and then they don't explain any benefits about it or what someone's going to get, which makes it incredibly ineffective. So having some sort of call to action in the blog is important as well. So finding topics it's an interesting area. So there's some things you can do. You can definitely use the keyword tool that we looked at. You can use Google Trends. You can look at competitive information like out of SpyFu like we did, which is great. What I absolutely love to do that we've had a very high rate of success with is going to Google Search Console and actually looking to see what we're already ranking for. So I'll open that up to have. So, and again, where this works, so total visits, Google Analytics, stages of SEO, and this one's very interesting. I think we will actually write a blog post on this one and take some steps to optimize it, because the stages of SEO, I've done some research, it has quite a bit of content, and really the rule of thumb with this Google Trends and why I love it so much is that if you can see a keyword that you get some traffic for, you can have a really high degree of confidence that you can get much more traffic for it. Versus you might pick a keyword that you want to rank for, but you have no status with it at all. I'm not saying you wouldn't target that with a blog post. And if you do your research and find out that, hey, there's no great alternate topics, so if I do a post on this, it stands a good chance to rank, absolutely. But there are no guarantees there, versus it is near guaranteed that if you pick a keyword that you already have a bit of traffic for, and you haven't taken any particular care to optimize for that, you can get way more traffic on that. So that can take a couple of different approaches. One is to write an original blog post. The other is to do a post that that builds on what you've already done. Actually, I'll show a super quick example of that as well. Let me just find it. Actually, here's, I'll show the stages one. Actually, here's the stages one. So this goes back from July 2018. So what I will actually do next month is probably keep this one, but do two things. One is update it, flesh it out a bit further, optimize it for that 5 stages even better. And then what I think we'll do is do a quick YouTube video that that we can do a YouTube video, then embed it here, and that will drive sort of even more awareness through Google and even sort of boost it even further in the rankings. So, and that's a situation too where there is such a thing as sort of YouTube video SEO, and there's some ways of making YouTube videos more prominent. You want to do that as well, but at the end of the day, you don't want to send traffic to YouTube to see the video. You do want them to discover it on YouTube if they're on YouTube, but otherwise, if you're promoting a video, say through Facebook or through other advertising or through wherever, you absolutely want to point that to a location where it's embedded on your website, because A, you want traffic to your website, B, it will give you a boost for the search engine optimization. So engagement and promotion, I won't get too deep into it. And again, I've beaten it to death that content that nobody sees is useless. But there are some great organic and paid opportunities in LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram. Here's an example of a business. We can see this, I think this was a grand $15 budget that 2,000 people saw, 16 people clicked on the links, and 48 people in total engaged on it. You want to pay attention to that stuff, because you'll learn your own set of best practices and how to promote. And that's a big way of getting out there, getting the links, getting people to the site. And the big questions really are sort of, who do you want to reach? Where do you want to reach them? Is it Instagram? Is it Facebook? And interestingly, we've been having way more luck lately on Instagram than on Facebook, to the point where almost ready to abandon a Facebook strategy and just focus entirely on Instagram, based on, even in business to business marketing, the results that we're getting there as far as comparison. Then you want to set your budget. You want to track sort of cost per engagement, cost per click, those things. And really, at the end of the day, if you've spent a couple hours getting a great blog post together, spending $20 to boost it on Facebook and Instagram, or to go over to LinkedIn, not a big deal. And the one, just gonna quickly So the other thing that's wonderful in Facebook, which of course you can reach the Instagram audience as well as Facebook through the Facebook advertising interface, there's the audience tab. A lot of people create their audiences on the fly and don't actually sort of plan them in advance. This is an example for one of our content situations. You can go in and create beforehand. It's like, oh, I'm going to look in Canada. I'm going to look at people who have the job titles of Chief Marketing Officer, Marketing Coordinator, and as you can see, like 10 other job titles are super simple to do. Just go create audience, saved audience, and then what you're going to do is create an audience of exactly marketing assistant job title, marketing officer job title, sort of whatever it is. The suggestions is really powerful. You click on suggestions and look, oh, here's all these different job titles. So just a quick example, again, separate from SEO, but absolutely critical if you want to get your content in front of the sort of people that are going to engage with your SEO content and possibly link to it. I'm afraid we're slightly over time, but we definitely want to talk very quickly about links. And essentially, we've talked about the follow versus no follow. We've talked about not buying links, which you absolutely don't want to pay for links because you'll likely get some garbage there. So one thing that's interesting here is if we go into moz.com. If you pick just one website, so we'll use the Cucumber Marketing example. Actually, this is where we gotta go. Oh, linking domains, 228. Oh, I could export a list of their linking domains. Oh, inbound links, ranking keywords, followed links. Oh, let's export their followed links. You can actually look at all your competitors, and this is the best answer to that earlier question. You could look at any or all of your competitors and find out exactly who's linking to them, which is typically the absolute best source of finding new places that you can link from. So I'll just open. Here's a funny one that that crashed right before we started, but here's one where I exported a set of links of a competitor. And you can go through and see absolutely everywhere that somebody linked from. And actually, pardon me, because I'm just gonna go, there we go. Now, the interesting thing in this and the cautionary tale is I have this sorted right now by date. And as it turns out, all the recent links that this company has gotten are all garbage. Look at these spam scores, 30%, 37%, 90%. And this one is particularly interesting because it's a fellow who's got an agency in Vancouver. I actually know him, and I'm going to pick up the phone and just sort of share this with him. But my extremely strong suspicion is that they have gone with some sort of outsourced agency to build links. They have basically gone out and paid for a whole bunch of garbage links on forums and whatnot around the web, and they have dropped right off the face of the planet. Now there's our from Cucumber Marketing. Let's open that one. Oops. And interesting. So they sort it by link authority. There's some Google and Owly links. Oh, Unsplash has linked to their portfolio. Halloween Valley, whatever the heck that is, has linked to them. They're organized by domain authority. So the highest domain authority ones are first. So say, oh, Neil Patel, who's a super well-known blogger, has linked to them. But again, you can just go through until, wow, that Halloween Valley is SC Pro Systems. You can go through and look through until you find some other places. Sometimes it's directory sites. One thing I could have and should have done probably is you can actually filter this so that it only shows the most important link per the most important link per domain, which is actually quite helpful. So anyhow, on that note, we'll jump quickly back to wrap things up. I'm a couple minutes over, so sorry about that, and happy to answer any more questions on the links, which we did move through quite quickly. Yeah, so short break before we jump into resources and questions. We love to do these webinars, and a big reason we do them is we love to help out, as well as what we found is that by getting out and sharing content, folks do tell other people about us, people that have questions or decide that they might need some services. We're always happy to answer questions. We actually don't have a sales team, so we never hound people, but if anybody is curious about what we can do for you, we'd love to chat. And we've got a super skilled team across the entire sort of spectrum of web marketing services, and I'm readily available should anybody have any questions about services. We do an absolute ton of Google advertising, Facebook advertising, SEO, content strategy, all that stuff. So again, always happy to answer questions. And with that said, in terms of more resources, we will let you know about future webinars. We do have our past webinars archived on our blog, on our website. So they're actually sort of 5 of the most recent 9 posts are webinars that have been sort of archived there. And again, just send any questions. I'm available via email, and I also love to connect on LinkedIn. So feel free to connect on LinkedIn. With that said, that concludes the formal part of our webinar. And now, yeah, happy to stick around and answer any questions that people have. I know most people jump off at this point, but let's jump into some questions.
Awesome. We have so we have a handful of questions, Rob, which is great. We have one from Catherine. She asks, is a site penalized with respect to SEO when it doesn't have a physical address? And she says that I was prompted to enter my physical address, which is my house, when I was doing some SEO stuff. Since it wasn't relevant to my online cartoon business, I didn't want to enter it.
So with the single most important place to have an address is for Google My Business. But again, that said, if your location doesn't matter, then it really doesn't matter. It's not going to penalize it. I guess a way to look at it would be that if you did want to show up locally, that you're way better off to have an address. And to have your address on your website, to include in the Google My Business, to include it in sort of Facebook locations, yellow pages, and that. But again, on the flip side, if location is irrelevant, then it doesn't matter.
Awesome. We have a question from Alex. So Alex was saying that he's seeing missing keyword data in Google Analytics, so it's labeled as not provided, and was wondering if there's a way to solve that.
Yeah, I'm so glad you asked that. And the way to solve that is basically to get Google Search Console running and integrate that with Google Analytics. And the reason that the keyword data is pulled out of Analytics is because evil marketers like ourselves got good at reading the Google cookies and forwarding marketing source information along with form submissions and that sort of thing. We've never done that in a situation where there's any privacy issues, but some industries are quite sensitive. So that does bring privacy concerns. And so Google has made that impossible by basically stripping the keyword data out of Analytics. So all that keyword data is actually available within Google Search Console. And then by attaching Google Search Console to Google Analytics, it pulls that data back into Analytics and gives you access to it for a lot of the stuff in Analytics. So that's absolutely how you would solve that challenge.
Cool. And then would you happen to know if there's any sort of a time lag there? Because Alex was saying that they did set up the Search Console and Analytics, I think, yesterday. So
Google Search, it doesn't record anything historically, so it's just basically moving forward. So a month from now, you'll have 30 days worth of data. 90 days from now, you'll have 90 days worth of data. So it's just literally as time passes, it'll build up.
Perfect. And then Roddy had a question who asks, we transferred over to a new site and anything we ranked with before was lost due to the URL slug being different. Is there
Yep.
any way to reconnect old ranking URLs to our new site site pages URL?
Absolutely. And that's really common. I actually once consulted on a website where they formerly had 1.4 million per month unique visitors, and it dropped to 800,000 a month after they migrated a site for that exact same reason. And essentially what happens is all that work you do on getting those links built up, if you change to a different URL, all of a sudden the link doesn't work anymore. So you want to be quite as quick as possible to get that addressed so that sites don't remove the links. But that said, essentially what you need to do is set up a redirect for each link. And so the process that we usually go through with clients who find themselves in that situation is we'll use tools like Open Site Explorer, sorry, I'm still using the old name, Moz Link Explorer, as well as, and usually a couple tools to make sure that we get all the links. And you can export all the links to the site along with the page that they're driving to. And then so you can figure out exactly which pages and prioritized according to domain authority. You can figure out exactly which of the old pages on your site need a redirect. And then at that point, there's something, not a developer, not a technical guy, but I think it's a 301 redirect is what you then set up. That basically you can, there's a couple of ways you can set those up. There's a highly technical way you can do it in one of the files that sits on your server, or probably better yet, in WordPress, you can set up a redirect plugin that will do that properly for you. And in that, it's as simple as getting the plugin running. You put in the old URL and tell it what URL to redirect to, and it will do that, and you will recover the SEO value of those old links. The one thing I would caution though, and this is what I said, is you don't want to just dump every URL on your website into a redirect plugin, because they can slow things down. And typically, most companies, it's a few of the pages that make up the bulk of the inbound links. So definitely identifying those, getting those set up is absolutely the way to go.
Nice. We have another question from Sarah, who asks, well, Sarah has an entire exercise library on YouTube, and she's wondering if there's a way to embed videos on your site without slowing it down.
Absolutely. So what I should do is, it's funny, again, I apologize. I got thrown off a bit with my computer crashing right before our webinar started. So I actually lost that link, but let me just quickly go to the blog and I'll show a very real example of how we do it. Just take 2 seconds. It's on our second page in our blog. Yeah, here we go. So here's what is our most popular blog post of all time. It's had, I think it's something like 15,000 visitors up to this point. It's old, so as you can see, in the back of my mind, I recently updated it, but of course that was June 2018, so that's now 2 years ago, so it could be due for a new update. So in terms of the video, what I've done in this case is this is me actually standing in my old home office since it's been updated, but there's me doing a YouTube video embedded, super simple embed code. Actually just one. So you just grab the, from the YouTube settings, you just grab the embed code and sorry, that overlay there. And essentially, so I just went into the source, the text mode on the blog post. And it's as simple as pasting in, oh, of course I lost it again. Simple as pasting in that tiny bit of embed code. It literally takes about 30 seconds. What I would say is it does add a tiny bit to the overhead of a page. So you wouldn't necessarily have, say, a page with 50 different exercises and all the video embeds on there, but you might have it categorized into specific exercises and have a few embedded, or you might even have it, I mean, in a perfect world, a perfect SEO world, you might have some category pages, and then you might have even individual pages for the individual exercises where you describe, or the groupings of exercises where you describe their benefits and sort of optimize for search in those ones.
Great.
Yeah.
So we have a couple more. Catherine was wondering about Yoast and how to get the most value out of Yoast. There seems to be a ton of data entry that she's not sure is worth it.
So Yoast, essentially, I mean, Yoast is kind of on, I would suggest, I think it was in our keyword strategy webinar, I got into some depth on there, but essentially what Yoast allows you to do is, sorry, my thing's just overlaying there. Let's just do any kind of search here. Where that came from, but so essentially what Yoast allows you to do is enter custom meta page titles and custom meta page descriptions. And that's actually a great example here. This example is Emma Dojo and Pride Gym. Both of them don't appear to have custom page titles and descriptions in. So essentially what Yoast does, and what I would absolutely use it for on all my most important pages, interestingly, it's crashed on us, which has stripped them out. It allows you to enter whatever the heck you want to say in this headline, and then whatever, and that's the custom meta title that you want to enter through Yoast on a per page basis. And then the meta description is this description down here. And so what Google's doing is just automatically pulling this from the website. So it's not complete, it's being cut off, it's not persuasive, versus if I go back to Web Marketing Vancouver search, yeah, so these ROI Web Marketing, and Vancouver SEO, they figure that's attractive and persuasive. And so that allows you to enter those sort of things there. And I mean, there's some other rules around making sure that the keyword for the page is in the page title and a bunch of stuff there. But again, I'd suggest, well, first off, that you absolutely want to put custom page titles and custom page descriptions for the pages that are going to show up in search. And then secondly, if you are sort of curious on how that relates to your keyword strategy, have a look at that keyword strategy webinar archive, and there should be some info there.
Great. We have one last question, unless there are any more. So Smita asks about content marketing and social media. She's quite active with both. She's used SEMrush for competitive research, and she is seeing a jump in Google rankings. And it looks like she's asking how to further leverage content marketing and social media to boost organic, and then how long it takes to see the change.
So it's interesting. For a while, Link Explorer was actually showing social likes and engagement right in the report. They're not doing that anymore. So I guess there's no quick answer to that. It's almost worthy of a webinar in itself. But what I would suggest is to start getting even more strategic. And this, of course, being said with total ignorance about what you're doing right now, but sort of leveraging social for more networking and engagement, tracking down people who might become strategic partners, finding people that might be willing to link to your site. Another thing too is if through social you'll uncover folks that might have interesting and relevant, interesting situations and relevance to stuff that you might write about. So you might actually do an interview with an online influencer. That'd be an example. Someone you've connected with on social media, do an interview with them, which leads to a very natural situation where they would want to link to you. So that's an example there. And in theory, social links and social engagement in theory don't influence SEO, but say absolutely without hesitation, the more engagement you get through SEO, the more it will lead, or sorry, the more engagement you get through social media, the more it will lead to that sort of activity like the linking. And also I absolutely believe that brand awareness and just raw traffic leads to improvements in SEO as well. I mean, Google sees every time somebody searches, sees every time somebody links, sees every time somebody pretty much visits the site. So just that sort of social activity, even if a social link technically is no follow and might not be counted as a followed link, Google knows if there's a bunch of traffic coming through social media, and I absolutely believe that that will help your overall ranking. So sorry to not have a more specific answer, but without seeing the site and social first, pretty hard to be definitive.
Okay, awesome. It doesn't look like we have any more questions.
Well, fantastic. With that said, we'll sign off now. And as mentioned, always happy to field questions at any time. Sort of have lots of opinions and happy to share them. And if something's too complex to answer, we'll just let you know. But otherwise, feel free to hit us up, and look forward to hopefully seeing you all on another webinar. Bye, everyone.
Awesome. Thanks, everybody.